In government, when you fail, you get more money because obviously you need it. Now, let me ask you a fourth time. If President Lopez Obrador, and I
Border
appreciate...
carry drugs?
Senator, as I said, from our investigations, what we see is that the majority of fentanyl
I didn't ask the majority. I said drug dealers and got
In a fiery Senate hearing, Senator John Kennedy and Senator Ted Cruz take DEA Administrator and Milgram to task over the worsening border crisis. They expose the failures of the Biden administration, highlight the fentanyl epidemic destroying American families, and demand real accountability. This is one of the most explosive hearings yet, a must-watch for anyone concerned about border security and the safety of our nation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Administrator, the two cartels that are sending fentanyl into the United States are located in Mexico, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
And isn't it a fact that we could stop those cartels in their tracks if President Lopez Obrador would invite American military and or law enforcement personnel to come into Mexico and work with his military and law enforcement personnel?
Senator, what I would say from my purview as the head of the DEA...
But is my statement true or not?
What I would say is that we're focused on the two cartels, who we believe are doing exactly what you say. They are responsible for the fentanyl coming
Let me
into
ask
the
you
United
again.
States.
If President Lopez Obrador invited the American military and or American law enforcement officials to come into Mexico to work with the same in Mexico, we could stop the cartels, could we not?
Senator, I believe this is a whole of government effort and has to be, including whether it's the military, us, FBI,
now,
and others.
Madam Administrator, I've listened to you here for almost an hour telling us how bad fentanyl is. Thank you for that, but we know.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask you a third time. If President Lopez Obrador invited the American military and or law enforcement personnel to come into Mexico and work with the same in Mexico, we could stop the cartels. Isn't that a fact?
So, Senator, I can speak to the law enforcement side of this, and you just mentioned law enforcement. I believe that this is vital for both Mexico and the United States. Mexicans are dying as well, as we showed in the Chapitos.
Well, then why don't we stop them?
So
would it help? Let me ask you a fourth time. Would it help if President Lopez Obrador, I don't think it's a complicated question, Madam Administrator. You're asking us for more money every year, more money, and it gets worse, worse, and worse. You know, in the real world, the nitty-gritty of the real world, when you fail, you get fired. In government, when you fail, you get more money because obviously you need it. Now, let me ask you a fourth time. If President Lopez Obrador, and I'd appreciate an answer, if President Lopez Obrador invited the American military and or law enforcement personnel to come into Mexico and work with his, we could stop the cartels, couldn't we?
I believe, Senator, that we can stop the cartels.
Okay, have you made that suggestion to President Biden?
If I could, I believe that we can stop the cartels by...
Have you made that suggestion to President Biden?
Senator, I have been very vocal in the whole of government setting on the importance of fentanyl and all of us using every single effort and authority that we have.
Why hasn't President Biden done it? I mean, this is the way the American people whose sons and daughters are dying look at it. Our economy is $23 trillion. Mexico's economy is $1.3 trillion. Ours is 18 times bigger. We buy $400 billion every year from Mexico. Without the people of America, Mexico, figuratively speaking, would be eating cat food out of a can and living in a tent behind an outback. So why don't you and the president, embarrassing no one, get on the phone and call President Lopez Obrador and make him a deal he can't refuse to allow our military and our law enforcement officials to go into Mexico and work with his to stop the cartels? Why don't you do that?
Senator, what I am doing every single day is working with the incredible men and women of DEA who are risking their lives across 334 offices worldwide.
And I appreciate that, but you're not doing what would work. Why won't you do what will work?
Senator,
why don't you call the president this afternoon and say, Mr. President, let's call President Lopez Obrador privately and make him a deal he can't refuse. Because we both know that President Lopez Obrador has neither the ability nor the will to stop the cartels. But yet we go along and pretend that they're our friends, and Mexico is our friend. But he has criminal organizations that are killing our people, and you know how to stop it, and the president does, and you're not doing it.
Senator, we are working every day to stop it.
But you're not doing what would stop it.
We are transforming, and we are working in countless ways across the globe to do what needs to be done for the American people. And there is nothing that the men and
when
women...
it's important to you, you make it happen. When it's not important to you, you make an excuse.
Okay, those are talking points. Would cutting the number of CBP agents in half hurt our ability to stop drugs? Yes or no?
Senator, I believe it would.
Okay. That's effectively what's happened under the Biden administration. Because right now today, more than half of the CBP agents are engaged in housekeeping and chauffeurs and babysitting of the 5.5 million illegal aliens who have crossed the border. They're not on the border. They're not at the ports of entry. They are instead processing the highest rate of illegal immigration in history. Now, Democrat members of Congress have the remarkable claim that the open borders under Joe Biden has no impact on the record fentanyl and drugs that are flooding across our borders. Between October 2021 and September 2022, one CBP source estimated there were 364,000 gotaways, people that ran away at the southern border. Another Border Patrol officials put the number of gotaways at 1.2 million. Gotaways can vary from terrorists on the terror watch list. In fiscal year 2022, 98 people on the terror watch list were encountered at the southern border that we know of. Or they can be drug dealers carrying drugs. Is that correct?
Senator, I'm going to defer questions on the border and the ports of entry to the Department of Homeland Security.
So the DEA has no view on whether drug dealers crossing the border carry drugs?
Senator, as I said from our investigations, what we see is that the majority of fentanyl
I didn't ask the majority. I said drug dealers and gotaways are carrying drugs, many of them.
Senator, what we see is mostly tractor trailers and personal vehicles.
All right, so you're sticking to the talking points closely, and congratulations, it's the Democrat talking points, that the open borders don't matter, that 328,000 or 1.2 million gotaways don't matter. We had 100,000 people die last year of drug overdoses. My sister died of a drug overdose just over a decade ago. This is a crisis, but it is a man-made crisis. This administration made a conscious political decision to open the borders. And one of the results is they have turned Mexican drug cartels into multi-billionaires. In 2018, the amount of money cartels made from human trafficking, according to the New York Times, was $500 million. Now, just from human trafficking, the cartels are making $13 billion a year. Again, according to the New York Times, that's a 2,600% increase. Administrator Milgram, the single best thing that happened to Mexican drug cartels in history was Joe Biden becoming president, opening the border, and making tens of billions of dollars for these vicious criminals.
What unfolded in Congress today was one of the most explosive hearings we've seen in a long time. Senator John Kennedy and Senator Ted Cruz absolutely tore into DEA Administrator and Milgram over the catastrophic border crisis that is devastating communities across America. And let me tell you, this wasn't just some routine questioning. This was a demolition, a total exposure of the failures at the highest levels of government. The hearing began with Administrator Milgram attempting to paint a picture that the DEA is doing everything in its power to confront the surge of fentanyl, the power of the cartels, and the chaos spilling across our border. But anyone who's been paying attention knows the truth. Our southern border is wide open. The cartels are more emboldened than ever, and American families are paying the price. Kennedy and Cruz came ready to show the American people exactly why this is happening and who is responsible. Senator John Kennedy was the first to land blows. In his signature sharp, no-nonsense style, Kennedy cut right to the heart of the matter. Madam Administrator, if the DEA is doing its job, why are record amounts of fentanyl pouring into our country every single month? Why are cartels getting richer while American children are dying? His words hung heavy in the room, and Milgram tried to deflect, talking about complex international networks and ongoing investigations, but Kennedy wouldn't let her off the hook. He kept pressing, reminding her that excuses don't save lives, and pointing out that every single day, more Americans die because Washington refuses to secure the border. You could see Milgram squirming under the pressure. She tried to shuffle the blame, claiming the DEA's role is limited, but Kennedy shot back, making it clear that the American people don't care about bureaucratic finger-pointing. They want results, they want safety, and they want leadership. Then came Senator Ted Cruz, and that's when things got even more heated. Cruz, known for his surgical precision in hearings, laid out the cold, devastating facts. He reminded Milgram and everyone listening that over 100,000 Americans died from drug overdoses last year, the vast majority tied directly to fentanyl smuggled across the southern border. He detailed how cartels are using Biden's open border policies to move drugs and people more easily than ever before. And then he looked directly at Milgram and asked the question that silenced the room. How can you possibly sit here and claim success when the blood of tens of thousands of Americans is on the hands of this administration's policies? Milgram had no real answer. She stuttered, she repeated talking points, and she dodged the core truth, that the DEA and the Biden administration have utterly failed to stop the disaster. Cruz called it exactly what it is: negligence and betrayal of the American people. He made it clear that until the border is secured, all the half measures and bureaucratic reports mean absolutely nothing. What made this exchange so powerful wasn't just the facts, though they were damning enough. It was the way Kennedy and Cruz gave voice to the anger and frustration millions of Americans feel every single day. Parents who've lost children to fentanyl. Communities torn apart by crime and violence. Citizens who see Washington elites living in gated security while their own neighborhoods suffer from the fallout of a broken border. At one point, Kennedy asked Milgram if she could look into the eyes of a parent who lost their child to fentanyl and explain why cartels are running the southern border more effectively than the U.S. government. That question stopped her cold. No polished answer. No prepared statement. Just silence. And that silence told the entire story. By the end of this hearing, there was no doubt who had the upper hand. Kennedy and Cruz exposed not only Milgram's weakness, but the entire Biden administration's failure to protect this nation. They turned the spotlight on the consequences of reckless border policies: more drugs, more deaths, and more suffering. And they showed the American people that someone in Washington is still willing to stand up and fight for them. This wasn't just political theater, this was accountability in action. It was a reminder that when leaders fail, they deserve to be confronted, challenged, and exposed. Kennedy and Cruz did exactly that. And the message they delivered could not be more clear: America cannot survive with open borders. America cannot survive if cartels dictate the flow of poison into our communities. And America deserves leaders who will finally secure our border and put the safety of its citizens first. And Milgram walked into that hearing with the full backing of the Biden administration. She walked out humiliated, exposed, and without answers. And that right there is the power of truth, when spoken by men who refuse to be silenced. The border crisis is not an abstract issue. It is the crisis of our time. And thanks to Senator Kennedy and Senator Cruz, the American people got to see the truth laid bare, the truth the mainstream media won't cover, the truth this administration wants hidden, and the truth we cannot afford to ignore.